Hello and welcome along to another episode of Championship Predictions from the Honest Football Podcast. I'm joined by Charlie Betts as always. Unfortunately, Craig can't make it this weekend, but he has sent us in scores, so we'll still be in the competition. Let's have a quick recap of what happened in midweek, and it was a very good one for me. I picked up the only two perfect scores of the week for Brentford Cardiff 1-0 and Wycombe beating Bristol City 2-1. That was a bit last gasp though. That gave me a total of 9 points with three other outcomes. Craig picked up 6, Charlie picked up 5. So not a bad week given the weekend we had before. And that means that the table looks like this. Craig's moved on to 317 with 54 perfect scores. I've got 299 with 49 perfect scores. And Charlie has 267 with 35 perfect scores. But let's move on to the weekend's action because it is a big full fixture list, lots of permutations. And we start with Bournemouth versus Brentford. It's the lunchtime kickoff. Both teams have all but assured a playoff spot now. But Bournemouth are on absolute fire, Charlie.
They are. The thing is, we mentioned this before. Do you start to now have half an eye on those playoffs? Do you start to rotate players? Do you start to rest them? However, whatever I said about Woodgate, I have to probably take back. It has been faultless. In terms of Bournemouth, they've been brilliant. Brentford have not convinced me. One win in the last 5. Admittedly, 4 draws, but for a team that's 5th in the league, you would expect a bit more. So I have to go with the momentum, even if they do mix around the squads a little bit. It's by what score. The thing is, Brentford, when their goal difference for a team up there is very high, obviously, in terms of goals scored, but they do concede a lot. They've conceded 41, which is one of the top in the top half of the table. So, in fairness, Brentford, even when they're not playing well, do nick 1. So, I'm going to go for a classic Jonathan Woodgate 2-1 win for Bournemouth.
Oh, fair enough. I'm inclined to agree with you, to be honest. It's a bit of a weird one because both sides are unbeaten in 6, but as you say, all bar one of those for Brentford is a draw, which doesn't suggest they're in the greatest form, and it has probably cost them any chance at the top 2. Bournemouth have now snuck up to 3rd place. They're absolutely flying. And like you, I can't see anything else than a Bournemouth win. I'm going to go one bigger. I'm going to go for 3-1 because they've just looked so good in front of goal recently. We'll get to Craig Savage's score as well. He's gone for 2-0 to Bournemouth, so he's gone for them to keep a clean sheet as well. Next up is Coventry versus Preston at St Andrews. Coventry, Charlie, passed the 50-point mark this week with 3 successive wins. And perhaps more importantly, they scored 3 goals in midweek.
The problem is I know that comments have been made before, but this is a completely different Coventry side to 10 days ago, let alone, the rest of the season. Like you say, they struggled in front of goal. That was an issue for them. That seems to have turned the corner. And they couldn't buy a win away from home particularly, and now they're free on the bounce. So, I don't know, but I mean, having said that, that was a good result for Preston, albeit against Derby, who I'm sure we'll go on to in a minute. But Preston at home have been 1 win in 5, draws, losses. It's so hard to predict. Whereas I think Coventry might just have to go with the momentum. And they got me a point last week, despite the people's opinions of what I think of them. I actually hope they stay up. They were not one of my teams to go down. So I'm going to back them for another win. Surely Coventry can't get free again. 1-0 Coventry City.
Oh, that's quite bold. I've actually gone for a Coventry win as well. I think it's going to be quite close because Preston, they got a good win themselves against Derby. They played really well in that game and were ruthless. However, Coventry, they're just flying. We said we didn't know where it was coming from. And what a time to start picking up wins and forms. I don't think many people saw it coming, but they've been brilliant. And as you say, it's good that they're now staying up because they're a good side. And obviously going back to Coventry will be great for them to still be in the Championship. I'm going to go for Coventry to nick it by 2-0 because I think they'll keep a clean sheet against Preston. And because Craig Savage has gone for 2-1 to Coventry, which is the score I would have originally liked to have gone for. Off to Oakwell next. It's a Yorkshire derby between Barnsley and Rotherham. Barnsley could secure a playoff spot if they get the right result in this one and other ones go their way. But Rotherham, Charlie, the schedule's just caught up with them, hasn't it?
It has, and I think that's shown even in some of the sending off. Obviously, they were down to 10 men after 18 minutes. I think the games are quite up. It's very leggy performance, and that often leads to late tackles, etc. But then they did still have they still had a fighting chance in that game. I still think there's more. We've had so many twists and turns in this relegation battle. I just can't see it being done yet. And Barnsley, with Reading not picking up a win at the weekend, obviously against Luton, as we'll talk about in a minute, that has given them, I think that's a 6-point cushion. That's huge at this stage of the season with 3 to play. So, I don't know, do Barnsley think that they're there and maybe take the foot off the gas a little bit? I think I have to back Barnsley. The momentum's with them. It's just a case of by what scoreline. I think I have to go for another resounding win. 3-1 to Barnsley.
Well, we've definitely got Barnsley to score the same number, but I have gone for them to keep a clean sheet as well. I've gone for 3-0 to Barnsley. Daryl DK scored a cracking goal at Huddersfield. They were dominant, Barnsley. They played really well and probably should have been more than 1 in truth. I think this time, against a side who are very leggy, they'll probably take their chances. So I've gone for 3-0 to Barnsley. But Craig Savage doesn't agree with us. He's gone for a 1-1 draw, the Championship's favourite scoreline. And he obviously thinks Rotherham's going to have a chance of staying up. So let's hope that he's right for Rotherham's sake. Next up, though, is Cardiff versus Wycombe. The visitors kept their survival chances alive in ridiculous circumstances, Charlie. The late penalty winner, and it won by the keeper's shot, who hit a hand in the box. Explain that to me.
Well, do you know what? For me, all joking aside, there's been a lot of talk about the elite level of the game. We're not here to talk about that and whatever's happened with this European League. However, that for me was why football in this country should have the pyramid and everything that goes with it, because that's the moments you love. Let's be brutally honest, the shot the goalkeeper hit, David Stockdale, was going about 6 feet wide. It wasn't even on target when he's hit his hand. So, do you know what I mean? And I think that's testament to Wycombe's approach. Actually, a lot of teams could have written off 1-1, will take a point and maybe try and get us out of the next two. But why not go bomb the keeper forward for a last minute? Obviously, risk and reward. They could have lost that, and then that was the final nail in the coffin for them. So I like that. I like that approach. And Cardiff are just winless in the last 5. And I really don't. It's very un-Mick McCarthy, this. There was a blip, obviously, when they got beat by Sheffield Wednesday, which I thought, okay, that was an off day. But maybe Craig was right. Maybe it has actually descended into a bit more of a lull in their performances. So, and what's worrying me is there's been a distinct lack of potency in front of goal, which they had when he first started. So I can't believe I'm saying this, because Wycombe have been hopeless away from home. But maybe Cardiff got nothing to play for, can't make the playoffs now. I'm going to have to back Wycombe. I think this is just going to go right down to the wire. 1-0 Wycombe. I can't go for anything else.
Well, I've gone for almost as good. And I will say for you, I know you say Wycombe's away form's been horrendous, but their best away form of the season has come in their last 2 games. So it's a good time for them to pick them up. Given the fact that Cardiff have now drawn 3 in a row, I can only see it being the Championship's favourite scoreline, because that's Cardiff's last 2 results. I think the way Cardiff and Wycombe play is a relatively similar philosophy, and I think they're going to cancel each other out. So I'm going to go for the Championship's favourite scoreline. But somebody's going to get a point, because Craig Savage has gone for a 2-1 Cardiff win. Right off to Pride Park, where Derby host Birmingham. Derby, Charlie, are in woeful form, and they've got to look over their shoulder now, haven't they?
They're in big trouble. I mean, we mentioned about Rotherham, who been winning this in the last 3 and the legginess. But what's not helped them now, the resurgence of Wycombe, Sheffield Wednesday, even to a degree, obviously picking up results they did. I honestly don't know where you go with this. I just cannot see anything in that. And this is not meant in a disparaging way. There's nothing that inspires me with confidence that Derby are going to pick up many more points between now and the end of the season, which is, I know, something I've said recently that blew up. But Birmingham, the only thing that might save them is Birmingham are now safe. Categorically, there's no chance. There's no way they're going to go down. But Bowyer would strike me as the sort of professional who's not going to take his foot off the gas. He doesn't seem like that sort of manager. He's quite diligent in his work. He was as a player. He was very hard working. And I think he'll be the same in his management. I don't think he'll want to settle for sort of 5th, 6th from bottom. Potentially, if results go their way, they could end up, nearly mid-table, which would be an unbelievable effort, because in terms of points, there's not many between them and Blackburn, for example, who are above them. There's 1 point between them, all up to Bristol City, who are 15th with 51 points. Suddenly, if Birmingham finish 14th, 12th, 13th, 14th, it's an incredible effort, and that looks great for Lee Bowyer. So I think he'll put his foot down on this, and I can't see anything but a Birmingham win. Derby are all over the shop at the minute at the back, so I think I might have to go big again. They went the other night, it's either 2-0 or 3-0. I can't see a Derby goal. I'm going to be bold, 3-0 Birmingham.
I'm glad you're bold with Birmingham winning 3-0, because Craig Savage has gone for 2-0 to Birmingham. So that means we don't have any repeat score lines and any controversy as a result. I completely agree. We have to go for a Birmingham win. The only slight worry for me is they dominated against Forest and didn't take their chances. And will it affect the confidence letting in the 98th minute goal against the run of play? I don't know. But Derby, I mean, what a time to hit bad form. And I think you mentioned it last week. They're probably, if they're going to stay up, it's by default. It's by other teams failing to catch them rather than them picking up points. But we said this a couple of weeks ago about another side, and they haven't lost since. So let's not get too excited yet. I'm going to go for 1-0 to Birmingham, because I don't think they're quite as ruthless in front of goal. But against the Derby defence, as you say, there could well be a collapse. But I'm going to stick with 1-0. Next up is Blackburn versus Huddersfield at Ewood Park. A win for the visitors will take them to 50 points, Charlie. But do you think they'll get it?
I don't know. Huddersfield suddenly then, when we thought they were sort of going out, picked up one vital win, and that's been enough to keep them out there, really. I mean, the chances of them getting caught is nigh on impossible. It's a bit of a dead rubber, this, which normally goes one of 2 ways. I've either got 0-0 or something crazy like 3-3. And the way these two defend, I'm edging towards more of a 6-goal thriller, because it's just, I'm going to have to go for it. I'm not going to waffle too much on this, but both teams, I mean, Huddersfield goal difference -18, nearly one of the worst in the league. Blackburn, I don't know, they concede a lot of goals, 49 goals away at home and away is not great. So on that basis, 2 each.
Bottled it. I'm going to go one lower. I've gone for the Championship's favourite scoreline. A bit like you, I don't really know what to predict, because it is almost all but a dead rubber. Both teams lost 1-0 in the week. Both teams were not great, to be brutally honest. But maybe they'll just cancel each other out. They've picked up similar results. They're in similar form. So I'm going to go for one apiece. Craig Savage, though, has gone for a barnstorming 2-0 Huddersfield win on the road. So he clearly thinks they are going to get to that 50-point mark. But to Vicarage Road next for Watford versus Millwall. The visitors haven't won in 3 now, but Watford beat Norwich in midweek. And does that keep their title chances alive, Charlie?
I can't see it. The thing is, I mean, I know that Norwich are probably taking their foot off the gas a bit. To say they're not going to pick up any more points, I mean, I'm just looking at the table now. You're talking about a 5-point swing in 3 games. I cannot see Norwich not getting at least a 1 win out of the next 3, especially when we talk about who they're playing in a bit. I think I'm going to have to go for a Watford win. They've been far too strong at home. They aren't massive scores, but they're Millwall, again, in front of goal. I mean, I know they lost 4-1 against Bournemouth, who've been in incredible form, but it's just 6-7 shots across the whole game. And especially Bournemouth, I know they've been good defensively, but to be restricted to that, I think is a bit of a flattery of Bournemouth's back 4. So for me, Millwall are in all sorts of bother up front, so I can't see them scoring. Watford aren't necessarily free-flowing at home in terms of goals or away. They just get the results. So nothing more than a 2-0 for me. I'm going to go for it, 2-0 Watford.
Well, we've got controversy because Craig Savage has also gone for 2-0 to Watford. So we have got a scoreline that overlaps, and you'll never be forgiven for that when Craig sees this episode. However, the one thing that really impressed me in midweek with Watford is the fact that they bounced back so emphatically, performance-wise, from what was a dismal display at Luton in the derby at the weekend. I watched the game. It wasn't great. Watford were pretty toothless. They got caught out wide so often. Luton sort of played with 2 wide strikers, and it just sort of alienated the fullbacks. And you saw that with Feminine with the 2 yellow cards, the second one late on as well. However, against Norwich, they were scintillating. They dominated the match. They probably should have had more than one. And I think they're going to keep their title chances alive too. But I don't know how Millwall are going to turn up, because I thought they'd be sort of, although they had nothing to play for, I thought they'd be quite defensive for the rest of the season, at least try and pick up points. But they were poor defensively against Bournemouth. So I'm going to go for Watford to win one bigger. I'm going to go for 3-0. Let's move on to a dead rubber between 2 out-of-form sides as Nottingham Forest host Michael O'Neill's Stoke City. Is it fair to say, given recent form, Charlie, that both sides are now on holiday?
Oh, they are, but Stoke, what is going on there? I know they're on holiday, but goodness me, to be one of the few teams in the league across the whole season to let in 3 against Coventry is worrying. But then they somehow have this. They'll win 1-0, then they'll maybe draw 0-0, and then there's a 5-goal thriller. Yeah. I just can't see many goals in this. Forest, as we spoke about all season, generally not been that potent in front of goal. Stoke, after this game, I imagine he'll try and tighten them up a little bit, but it's hard if your players aren't motivated. I don't really know what you do. So I'm going to have to bottle it and go down the middle again and go for the Championship, the favourite scoreline, because Nottingham Forest, even if they played against 8 men, I imagine wouldn't score many more than 2 goals apart from once this season. So do you know what I mean? I just can't see many goals in it. So I'm going to have to go for 1-1.
No, that's fair enough. And Craig's in agreement with you on the outcome. He's gone for a 2-2 draw. He obviously thinks this is going to be one of the games that you've gone for that's going to be a thriller while both sides are on holiday and defensively lapsing. For me, though, I'm going to go for the confidence of Nottingham Forest. That 98th minute goal against Birmingham that we mentioned earlier on, they got outplayed and they snuck something out of the game. That's classic Chris Hughton, and I think they'll bounce back in this one. And mainly because they're playing against Stoke. Against most sides, I wouldn't have predicted the win. But I'm going to go for your Forest special of 1-0 because, I mean, Stoke are so poor defensively that even if Forest are out of form, you couldn't bank against an own goal or something like that, could you? So I'm going for 1-0 Nottingham Forest. 2 sides that won in midweek, though, are Middlesbrough and Sheffield Wednesday, who play at the Riverside on Saturday. We wrote them off, Charlie, but have the Owls got a chance of surviving now?
I mean, if there's ever a story to be written, I'm not getting involved in the politics of it, but I know there's talk of obviously potentially if Sheffield Wednesday leapfrog Derby and all of the sort of politics that goes with that. In terms of deductions and who got them and who didn't, but we'll avoid that part. It's tough because I think there's key games that we've mentioned it before. There's key moments in games that Sheffield Wednesday haven't quite taken, but there's been a few games recently where they haven't. But then teams they shouldn't be beating, they are, and teams they probably should, they're not getting a result against. So, but they're playing Middlesbrough, and I think that's a bit of a false dawn the other day against Rotherham. As I say, 72 minutes against 10 men, and they sort of just stumbled over the line a bit, really. Oh, I don't know. I think Middlesbrough are still woefully out of form, potentially on holiday, very on Warnock-like, but I just can't see any change in that. So I have to go for another Wednesday win, which is normally when this sort of thing happens, is when Wednesday lose. But I'm going to have to back it. And Borough have conceded. I have been slightly stronger at home. I will give them that. Oh, 1-0 Sheffield Wednesday.
Oh, you've nicked the score I wanted to go for. Craig Savage has actually gone in reverse. He's gone for 1-0 to Middlesbrough. So he obviously fancied the Neil Warnock special to return just before the holidays. But you've now left me in a difficult spot because both of the 1-0s are gone. And I think we're all in agreement. That's the most likely result. My heart's telling me I'd like Sheffield Wednesday to stay up because they're a good side. they've been good to us as a podcast this season. Do you know what? I'm going to go for them to do it. I'm going to have to go one bigger because you two have stole the scores already, but I'm going to go for 2-1 to Sheffield Wednesday. They're going to win at Middlesbrough this weekend. Off to the Kai and Prince Foundation Stadium as QPR host leaders Norwich. Back-to-back defeats for Norwich, Charlie. Does the title risk slipping away?
I suppose we've been in a situation, admittedly it was a Sunday league team, but when you're at top of the league, there is a bit of a thing of when you're near there and then you know you're pretty much going to be home and dry, you do take your foot off the pedal. The difference is, I suppose, is obviously in terms of the winning the league. As I say, 5 points with 3 games to go. Surely they should still have enough. But then I say that QPR have been, 2 on the bounce at home. Oh, I don't know. See, I think QPR will be a bit annoyed because this form really they're in at the minute. Admittedly, lost a couple in the last 5, but before that they've been flying. This is playoff form, and unfortunately they're nowhere near the playoffs. Too many points off of it. So for me, I think unfortunately I'm going to have to go for a Norwich win. As much as QPR have been in good form, I can't imagine Daniel Farke will let them get this far and then blow it. A win here, and obviously I think mathematically if they haven't, they would have won the league anyway, depending on the Watford result, because I can't see them dropping that many points. So for me, a Norwich win. I've gone for too many 1-0s today, but it's going to happen. There's going to be a corner late on that QPR have pushed men forward for, and Norwich sneak one back at the end. 2-0.
I'm glad you said that, and I'm glad you found a late goal because Craig Savage has gone for 1-0 to Norwich City, so we didn't want any more controversy. But I'm actually in disagreement with both of you because QPR have been in great form. Norwich, albeit against 2 very good sides, have had back-to-back defeats. They're playing against a side who are in the type of form of a Bournemouth or a Watford in recent months. If you took it on the second half of the season, QPR would be right up there. So I think QPR are going to get a result in this game. Part of me wants to go for a win just for the sake of the competition, but I think it's going to be a draw. And actually, unlike you two, I think it's going to be a thriller. So I'm going to go for 2 goals apiece, and I think there's going to be goals galore and chances galore, more importantly. But let's move on to Sunday. The TV game at lunchtime is Reading versus Swansea. The host, Charlie, were held by Luton in midweek. They fall 6 points behind Barnsley, as you mentioned earlier on, with just 3 games to play. Is that their playoff hopes over?
Yeah, I think so. I can't see, especially the fact that Barnsley have got potentially Rotherham, who me and you have both backed them to win. Obviously, Barnsley win that, they're dead and buried. And Reading, I think it's a bit of a catch-22 for them because before the season, I don't think anyone would have been expecting them to be disappointed they weren't in the playoffs, given the summer they had and the players they brought in, etc. I think so. Actually, if you'd have taken that back to August, you'd have taken this Reading 7th place, just outside the playoffs. But I think given the season they had, they've been up there and thereabouts, and they've slowly dropped. And obviously their form hasn't been great. 1 win in the last 5, admittedly 3 draws with that, but still, I don't know. But then Swansea, 2 wins, but then the last 2, only 1 point in the last 2 games. I really don't know what's going on with Swansea. Have they just settled for a playoff place? So I can't split them. But I think it'll be goals. I'm going to go for 4 goals split between the 2 teams, which is a rubbish result for both sides. But I think that's what's going to happen for both of them. So Reading's playoffs hopes to be dashed, and Swansea's very, very, very slim chances of making 3rd and therefore possibly getting a better draw in the playoffs. So I think we'll go as well. So I'm going to go for 2-2.
Well, you couldn't be more different to Craig Savage, who's gone for a sneaky 1-0 Reading win just to keep them in it. So we're going to have 2 very different types of games according to you two. I'm somewhere in the middle because Swansea, as you mentioned, have been unconvincing. They look like they were bouncing back. And in fairness, their last 2 wins were both on the road, albeit not against sides in the form of Reading. And Reading, they weren't convincing against Luton. They were probably a bit fortunate to get a point. We had a couple of good chances against them, and they didn't look like, and even towards the end when they were throwing strikers on, they didn't look like a side who were desperately chasing a goal to get into the playoffs. And that was the bit that worried me mentality-wise. Only 1 goal scored in the last 3 games. So actually, I'm going to change what I was going to go for. I'm going to go for a Swansea win, and I'm going to go for 2-0 because no one's gone for the law, so we might as well, mightn't we? The final game of the weekends, it is a mid-table clash, a bit of an underwhelming finish between Bristol City and Luton Town. 2 sides in very different form, though, as we come towards the end of the season.
Talk about home form as well. Bristol City's home form has been catastrophic, to be honest. And I don't like using that word, Nigel Pearson, but even I know that they're away from home against Wycombe, but I'm not referring to the sort of maybe some of the comments that were left. But I think they're in such bad form. Why that is, I don't know. It sort of summed up, maybe the penalty, etc. But they seem to be lacking confidence somewhere along that back line, which is very unlike Pearson. If you look when, for example, he's been at Leicester or when he got teams promoted, even at Watford, that last stint there, defensively they were quite sound, minus the Tranmere game, which was a 6-goal thriller. But do you know what I mean? They've been defensively sound, and I don't understand what's going on there. Luton, albeit away from home and not necessarily as free-flowing, I think Bristol City's home form was that bad that Luton have only got to turn up and maybe play at 75% and get a result. And that's not to be antagonistic. It's just the way Luton will have got a lot of confidence from that win against, obviously, Watford. And a draw against Reading is, we spoke about Reading's form, but still a cracking side and 7th in the league. And it's something for Luton to build on. I'm not a Luton fan, I'm not going to profess to know loads about it, but I mean, a few more drop points earlier on in the season, and actually Luton could have been the top half of the table, pushing for 9th, 8th, 61, 62 points. So there's probably a few results there that might have gone a different way. So I think Luton could be really proud of that, and I think that's professionalism showed in those games. So I'm going to have to go for a Luton win, 2-0. Can't see a Bristol City goal, 2-0.
We are having so much controversy today because Craig Savage has also gone for 2-0 to Luton. I think it's great because you don't know his scores and only I do. And this shows how much you predict similarly. But for me, I am in agreement with you both on the outcome, but I think it will be a little bit of a narrower margin than that. I know Luton scored 3 away at Wycombe, but generally 1-0 is the law away from home for Luton if they're winning a game. As you mentioned, you can't predict a Bristol City home win. I know it could come and we could look stupid if it's 5-0 Bristol City, but you cannot predict it based on the season. They still haven't won a home game under Nigel Pearson. And I know they've had a lot of injuries. I know they've had a lot of concerns, but we're actually at the point now, and I know you absolutely love Nigel Pearson, but is this form, take away the results themselves, is the form any better than under Dean Holden? I'm not entirely convinced. Having said that, I can't back Luton score more than 1 on the road. So I'm only going to go for a 1-0 win. And let's have a quick recap of what we've predicted for Matchday 44. Craig Savage has played very calmly today. He's got no side to score more than 2 goals and loads of clean sheets dotted around. Charlie has gone crazy. He thinks that Derby County are going to be in big trouble as Birmingham are going to win 3-0 there. And I have gone for a 3-0 win for Barnsley as I think they're going to wrap up a playoff place this weekend. That's it for this weekend's predictions. Let us know what you think the scores will be down in the comments below. Do you agree or disagree with what we've gone for? Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. You can follow us over on Twitter at HonestFootball3. And we'll see you next time.